This has given me a lot of insight into Presley, what's happening inside Presley's brain.
It's Presley at actoutgames.com here, and today we're doing a mental health update thing. I've been to a couple of therapy visits since my last one.
And you had one yesterday.
Yes, I had one yesterday, so that's why we're talking about it now.
Yep.
But yeah, we're just gonna go ahead and talk about some of the stuff that happened there. Or I guess I'm gonna talk about some of the stuff that I did. And
yeah, I'm not in there, so
you are not.
I hear about it secondhand too.
Yes.
But I can talk about what we're doing, sort of as a family too.
Yes, and you should talk about
what we're learning.
You should talk about the quiz, because they give you a quiz whenever you go. It's not a quiz, a form, I guess. Give you a form.
Yeah.
And if
it's
you're
just kind of how are you doing today?
Yeah.
And they give you an iPad, and so Presley has to answer a bunch of questions about how she's feeling and how she's been feeling for the past 7 days. I think usually is what it focuses
7 days,
on.
2 weeks.
And then I have to answer my perception of how she's been feeling for the past 7 days. I think we answer the same questions.
Yeah.
And then they just kind of look at them and see if we're sort of aligning or not aligning.
Yeah.
And I think historically they felt like we aligned pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I've been told that in my first visit I was told that it was surprising how much we align, because normally that doesn't happen.
So why don't you go ahead and talk a little about what happened yesterday, and then there's one thing I want to talk about too that's a little more broad thing.
Oh boy. Okay. So what happened yesterday is we talked about a lot about learning and procrastination. I've recently stopped. Well, I've started doing something else to procrastinate more on the thing I'm supposed to be doing. So I started doing Duolingo again with like 6 different languages. To procrastinate on doing other learning. So we were talking about procrastination and learning and how fast I learn and how hard it is for me. It's hard for me to learn in front of people. Like I can learn on my own just fine, but learning in front of people is scary. So we talked about that, and she gave me this, which is which you can't really see, but it's an anti-procrastination sheet. And so, sorry. So you list out, I hope I didn't just cut you.
No, you're fine.
Okay, good. It lists out it has 6 spaces and where you can write down your task, what you have to do. And then you predict how hard it's gonna be on a scale of 0 to 100. And then you predict how satisfied you're going to be with 0 to 100. And then after you do it, you write down the actual difficulty and actual satisfaction. As well as she gave me an app on my phone that is supposed to help you like write down stuff and not stop procrastinating. And stuff
it's called productivity.
It is called productivity. I always say product.
So yeah, it's interesting because the sheet and different things they talked about is encouraging Presley to break things down into smaller tasks, which I think is a really great way to go. And I think it helps you. And
it's always been really hard for me to do that.
It's a very math and science approach to doing things. Take big problems, make them into smaller problems, solve all the smaller problems, and then you solve the big problem. Yeah. And so I love that as a problem solving approach in general. And so making something that is a huge daunting thing that you have to do seem more doable by just doing the little pieces. And so that's what, when Presley's working on CS50, I'll say, okay, today let's try and do this. Make this piece of the application work. And then tomorrow make this piece of the application work, and then the next day make this piece, and then suddenly you've got a working app, right? Woo. So it's a good way to attack those kinds of problems, because when she looks at it as, I have to do my final project for CS50, like that seems like a huge amount of work, and it's a big problem, she doesn't know where to start, and she starts procrastinating and doesn't do it. But if you say, okay, just build a web page where you can fill out this form, that's all. Yeah. Then that's doable, and she can tackle that and do that. So I think it's a good coping mechanism for you. Yeah? Yes. The other thing I wanted to mention real quick before we kind of get out of here, I'm gonna switch hands because my hand's getting tired holding the camera.
There you go.
Is one of our favorite new words in the family, mommies especially, is what?
I don't know. What are you talking about?
Catastrophizing.
Oh yes, catastrophizing.
This is one of Presley's last therapist appointments. They talked about catastrophizing, and I don't think we talked about it.
No.
So I think this has given me a lot of insight into Presley, what's happening inside Presley's brain. Is that she takes little things that are happening and turns them into catastrophes.
Yep, I don't have control over this. This is not me being dramatic.
She has another worksheet that is about, like, when you're in catastrophizing mode, write down what do you think is about to happen and how likely is that to happen, and then what actually happened probably, and stuff like that. So it's a similar way that when you're in that mindset, you can try and think your way out of it a little bit.
Yeah.
But like, I will say, let's use CS50 as an example, since we were talking about that. So Presley's Presley's on the computer, like playing a game with her friends or something, or role playing or writing or doing something. And I'm like, hey, Presley, I need you to work on CS50 for a little bit. Can you go knock this out, right? And so sometimes that turns into like a huge thing. Like Presley really kind of freaks out, and there's yelling and screaming, and it turns into a whole like family ordeal. And through Presley's therapy and what she's going through, I've learned a lot about, like, in Presley's head, she's thinking, oh, I'm gonna have to stop playing, and then my friends are not going to be able to play the game correctly because I'm not there to kind of help them out, and then they're probably going to get someone else to play my role in the game, and then they won't need me anymore, and then they're going to hate me, and then they're not going to be my friends anymore, and I'm going to lose all my friends. Like, she just has this spiral. That's just an example. I don't have to go into the details of that example. It's an example of the kind of like spiraling mindset that Presley gets into when you're like, okay, or if we're doing a video and I'm like, oh, it would be cool if you did that. And then Presley hears, oh my God, it's the worst, it's terrible, it's the worst thing ever, and everybody hates it, and I'm a fraud, and people are going to discover that I'm a fraud, and that nobody likes anything that I do. Because like a little comment or like a little thing can really just spin her into catastrophizing, like making a catastrophe out of it. And that can be really taxing on us, like me and Mom, and Cooper too, right? Because like Presley's spinning out of control, and I don't grok always like what's happening in Presley's head. That, like, I'm like, why? I didn't say anything. Like, why is this happening? Why is she so spinning out of control on this, right? And so it can be really exhausting and taxing, and we can overreact too. It turns into a catastrophe sort of family-wide. And so I apologize for when I overreact and escalate the catastrophe. But like we're finding coping mechanisms, all of us. Like, this is an important thing. So Presley is dealing with these mental health issues and going to therapy and sort of learning how to deal with those kinds of things. But as a family, you also have to learn how to address it. But it's a really fine line. Like we certainly haven't mastered it. So I'd love to hear any advice that you guys have, because like on one side, we understand what's going on and that Presley's having these catastrophizing spirals that are happening, and it's making her overreact to stimuli and changes of schedule and input and feedback and having to do things and stuff like that. So she's spinning out. And I know this is happening and it's not in her control and it's something that's happening, but at the same time, like, we need her to do things. Like, you have to be able to change schedule, and you have to be able to do your homework, and you have to be able to get things done. And so how much do we push and say, look, I understand that you're having this problem, but you got to do your work. Like, you have to push through, right? And so how much are we just totally accepting of what's going on in your head and say, okay, well, okay, I understand this is a catastrophe for you, so don't do your CS50 homework, which doesn't seem like a great option, versus like, how do we sort of talk her down and get her through? So as a family, we're all sort of learning how to talk through that. And I'm sure you guys have had some similar experiences, and would love to hear any techniques that you guys have found that work with your family, or techniques you found that don't work with your family, so that we know not to try those. So, I mean, we're trying to be better and more understanding as her parents, and she's trying to be better. And you know, what we really need, I think, is to find ways that we can let Presley know when she's spinning out of control a little bit, that she is spinning out of control a little bit, in a way she will believe us. Because I think a lot of times we say, Presley, it's happening right now. And Presley's like, no, it's not. This is real. This is not me being dramatic.
This is It's not a phase.
Right. And so finding a way to convince Presley, okay, this is irrational, like what's going on right now. Let's just take a step back. In the moment, it's almost impossible to convince her of that, right?
Right.
Like, what, can you even remember? Like,
I do remember them. I remember doing them. So I've found a couple of things that I've learned is here. Should I give an example of one that I've had?
Yeah.
So an example of one that I've had, it traces back to something that's really common in ADHD individuals called rejection sensory dysphoria, which is whenever anyone says something like negative towards you, that spirals out of control and you feel like you're being rejected. And it's called sensory dysphoria because it's not that. It's someone's just sort of like, hey, could you not do that? And you're like, I am a failure.
Right.
So it's like, one of the ones that I remember really well is sort of like, and it happens a lot for me, is like anyone will basically say something in a vaguely negative tone of voice that I'm perceiving, like it might not even be negative at all. It's just like, can you do that again? Just sort of as, and this is actually, oddly enough, this doesn't happen in many professional settings. But at home, if someone's like, can you say that in a different way. That spirals out of control. As to the way you said it is awful. You suck. You are very wrong, and you should rely on everybody. See, when these things happen, it switches wildly between you need to be relying on everyone because clearly everything you do is wrong, and you need to only rely on yourself because you're a burden on everyone else, and it's very hard.
But so, and I think this is also having an impact. This is part of what's having an impact on Presley from an education standpoint. Is that like if we're doing some new math, the new math. If we're doing something that's new to Presley, if we're doing something that's new to Presley and she's struggling with it and doesn't get it like right away, even in like a pre-test to kind of see what she knows and what she doesn't know, when she doesn't know something, she just really freaks out. And it's like, I'm an idiot, I don't know anything, like I'm terrible, like, so she used to be really good, and we used to encourage her to like miss things and do things wrong and understand how failure is the only way to learn. And that used to be games that we played, and we used to talk about like playing video games and having epic fail contests and just learning how to fail comfortably, right? And so she's lost a little bit of that because of what's happening. Like she catastrophizes every little failure. Like if she misses a math problem, then suddenly that spirals into a huge thing. And it doesn't always happen. Like don't get me wrong. Like, well, we're not saying that every time Presley misses a math problem, it turns into a catastrophe. It's really hit or miss, and you don't know when it's going to happen and when it's not going to happen. And so it's a really, as a family, it's a really interesting thing for us to learn how to deal with.
So things I learned about this in my own time is, well, first I learned what reduction sensory dysphoria was, and like now I understand that that's what's causing these problems. And I know, and I've never really had problems with RSD in a social setting, at least not in a social setting where I'm comfortable with people, because it will start out as usually one of my main delusions, I guess. It's like all your friends hate you, and they are lying to you to make you feel better. And that sort of turns into like asking myself, do you think your friends are liars?
Yeah, well, so that's the whole like form to fill out too. Like, what do you think is going to happen? How likely is it to happen? And stuff like that.
Because I like to, the only way, and it's the only one I can do right now, but it's just sort of like, are you calling your my good friends whom I love liars?
When they say they like you, do you think they're lying?
Am I calling them a liar? Which I'm not. So.
And this is one more thing because we need to wrap up. We're at 12 minutes. So the other thing in this is that this side of Presley is something that only her mom and I have the luxury of experiencing. She doesn't really show it to her friends, and like she said, never in a business setting or anything like that. Like, it doesn't pop up. And part of it is because like mom and I are the ones that have to make her do stuff she doesn't want to do. Like, her friends are never saying, "Hey Presley, can you stop and go work on CS50?" You know, like, they're not the ones telling her to do that.
Sometimes we do. Sometimes if we're like, "I'm procrastinating, please tell me to do it."
And even like if one of her friends criticizes like her writing or something, sometimes that will set her off a little bit, but not to her friends. Like, she will go in her room and feel bad and obsess about it. She won't sort of go to her friends and let them know that you're saying I'm terrible.
Well, I've gotten, since I have been having my writing criticized for the past 4 years now, that has sort of gone out of it, but just sort of vague.
So mom and I are blessed with being the only ones that get to see that Presley.
Yay!
Maybe someday we'll put that Presley on the channel. That would be pretty funny. Okay, anyway, so we're gonna wrap up because this has been a long time. But yeah, if you guys have any like similar stories or similar circumstances in your families, or you've been through something similar and you have some things that work or things that don't work, we'd love to hear your advice. Yeah? Awesome.
So yeah, I guess we're getting out of here. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to press the subscribe button to see more videos like this, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye!
Bye, guys.